Previously on Excelsior's journey. What you're looking at is the sketch for Excelsior. Oh, it's hot. It's really hot. I would like to introduce Kevin, the Minion Forge. In this video, after 4.5 months, we're finally finishing Excelsior! So I want the end of the pommel to have a clamshell motif, or scalloped you could say, and it'll really resemble the handle, and I think it'll tie in really well with the handle. Because on the handle we have all these beautiful straight rounded flutes. So the clamshell motif on the end of the pommel should really just look like it goes well with the handle itself. So to do that, I want to get 16 lines all evenly spaced around the end of the pommel. So I'm going to do that similarly to the way we laid out the lines for the handle. And I've got it in my handle fluting layout jig. And we've got a round wheel here with 16 lines in it. And I'm just going to take the height gauge and get it lined up on each one of these lines. And then we'll come over here and scribe lines on the end of the handle. My layout is done, so we can start filing in the scallops. I've already sort of roughed in 2 of them so far. We've got 16 to do in total. I like to start at the very corner and just make a nice little nick right on my line, and that gives me a good starting place to go so my file doesn't slide all over the place, and then I can slowly start adding more and more pressure. Once I start getting some depth, I'll then start bringing that cut up towards the center further and further. I am done filing in the scallops for the end of the pommel. The next step we need to do is take it over to the buffer and put a Scotch-Brite wheel on and clean up all these file marks with the Scotch-Brite wheel, and then we can move on to buffing after that. The end of the pommel is done. It's got a beautiful mirror finish, and I think it's gonna tie in so well with the fluted handle because they both look like they're of the same tribe. You've got the deep scallops and the nice deep fluting on the handle. Everything's all roundy. I have breaking news. We've just gotten word that the Royer family has created a brand new course. So to tell us about it live on the field is Kyle. Kyle? That's right, Kyle. We've released a brand new knife making course called the Beginner Bladesmith. If you're a beginner bladesmith looking to begin your knife making journey, then check out the link in the description and this course might be perfect for you. We're also running a sale from now until my birthday, which is December 5th. So hurry up and check it out. Back to you, Kyle. Thanks for that, Kyle. And now back to our regularly scheduled broadcast. We are ready to move on to the final gold inlay. I've got to figure out a layout to do on the pommel that ties in with the rest of the pieces for the gold inlay. And we just got to go into the engraving room and start carving. I am finally done with all of Excelsior's gold inlay. This pommel was the last piece to do and all the gold is in. We just need to start sanding on all the fittings now. I do want to take a quick moment and talk about this plastic thing that you might have noticed holding my part. So basically what I've got here is a piece of thermoplastic. It's got a little bit of a hinge right here. There's a thin amount of it right here, and I cut into it with a saw down here just to make it so it would flex open. And that way I can get my part in and out of there easy. This was really important to make for this part. If I was gonna try to clamp it in here, my vise would probably ding into it and I'd have to put multiple layers of leather and stuff in here, and it'd be a hassle every time I needed to move the part around. So having it in something that would hold it securely and allow me to move it very easily and quickly was really vital. So here's what this thermoplastic looks like before you start using it. It's just like some gray hot glue gun sticks, basically. And all you do is put a couple sticks, however much you need, in the microwave, and you cook it for 10 seconds at a time. In between each cooking session, you take it out and kind of start meshing it together until it starts to form a big ball of clay-like stuff. Got the pommel mounted up at the lathe, and I'm gonna go ahead and sand with 220 grit, then 320, and then 600, and I'll probably stop at that point because I need to do a little bit more buffing on the top and do a little bit of work on this little bevel down here. We'll do all that, and then I'll bring it back over to the lathe and sand it all the way up to like 3000 grit. I am done hand sanding the fittings. All that needs to be done on them is for them to be buffed and blued. And a lot can go wrong here, and if it does go wrong, you gotta sand all the bluing off and re-sand your fittings, and it can be a pain, so I'm hoping it goes really well. To start with, I'm gonna clean the fittings with soap and water, and then we're gonna put it in the 180 degree cleaning solution that Brownells recommends to use with their bluing salts. And we're gonna put it in there for 10 to 15 minutes and let it chemically clean the pieces, rinse them off, and then put it into the bluing salts. I'm gonna be using Brownells Oxenate 7, and we need to keep it in there for normally 15, 20 minutes or so. Take the pieces out, put them in boiling water, and that neutralizes and cleans the parts, and especially the insides of the parts. We don't want any leftover salts on the inside of the pieces. Inspect it, make sure it all looks good, and then put some water displacing oil on the fittings, and then our bluing process is finished. Wow, it's looking good now. The telltale thing is when we dry it off. I'm trying not to get fingerprints on it right now, because when you dry it off with paper towels, it'll be like squeaky clean, and we'll be able to see if there's any blotches or anything going on. Let's see something there, maybe. I'm seeing horrible little specks all over. Do they come off, or are they permanent? You want the good news or the bad news first? I'll start with the good news. The pommel nut looks absolutely fantastic. The bad news is the rest of the parts all need redone. Every single last one of the big parts that are very complicated to sand on and stuff. We got blotches, we got some little dots and stuff. I don't know. The worst part about the bluing is when that stuff happens, a lot of times I don't know what it did. So all I can do is try to repeat the process and do everything just right, and hopefully hope that it doesn't come out that way the next time. Normally I use navel jelly to strip off the bluing, but since I don't want to take it off the end, I'm going to try to sand it off, and it might take quite a bit of sandpaper, because believe it or not, there's actually quite a thick layer of bluing that builds up on there. Yeah, this stuff's pretty tough. Like, I'm not sanding it off. I mean, it's sanding it off, but it didn't sand all the way through it yet. gold has some blotches I can see, but that might wipe white off. Wipe white off. That might wipe white off. Okay, I guess I can just hold it. We're gonna see if we got rid of the blotches and nasty weird stuff or not. I hope so. I got a good feeling about it, but I had a good feeling about all the other parts too. Well, I didn't have a good feeling about the front spacer after the other two parts were bad. Anyway, I almost don't even want to look at it and just pretend that it's perfect and then go inside and have supper, take a shower, and then look at it tomorrow. Except I wouldn't be able to sleep, I don't think. It looks good. I see no blotches or anything. It looks as evenly could be. I'm gonna say it was the cleaner. I'm gonna say too powerful and or soaking in the cleaner too long is what messed up 3 of those parts. So it's a brand new day. Yesterday we re-blued the pommel a second time, just selectively doing the main cylindrical area, and we left the top alone, and it turns out the bluing blended together really well. I didn't know if that would work to leave bluing on the top of it and then redo part of it. It did work really well, but there's some micro scratches on there that I should have gotten out, I guess, before the bluing, but they really got amplified after the bluing, so I'm gonna redo the pommel for a 3rd time, try to get rid of those micro scratches, but the bluing came out perfectly. My plan is to strip the bluing off all 3 of these pieces. I'm gonna use some navel jelly. It should strip it off nice and quickly, and it'll leave a little bit of a textured surface, so we'll have to go over everything with sandpaper again, and then we'll have to buff everything again. Gotta get it done, because I really, really, really want this thing to look beautiful, and I want this bluing done. So the guard looks almost perfect just about everywhere except for on the bottom here. On the bottom, it's real kind of blotchy and the texture is just kind of flat looking. It's not nice and shiny black. So you put this stuff on here and it takes a minute or 2, but it'll start reacting, and then all of a sudden it'll react really quickly and you'll just see the bluing all disappear magically, like right in front of your eyes. It sometimes takes a little while to break through the layer though, but as soon as it does, it just cascades all over the place and it's really cool looking. I'm gonna put it all over, make sure everything's coated really well, and we'll just let it sit there for a minute. We should start seeing it react. It would take a lot of time to sand off all this bluing, so this will expedite the process exponentially. Here it goes right here. Check it out. It's starting to break through. It should start spreading. Look over here, big area. Let me wipe on it a little bit. All right, I'd love to let it just sit there and let you guys watch, but I actually kind of want to wipe all over on it because there'll be areas that don't want to come off as quickly as the rest, some little areas, and I want to wipe it all off and get it all off of there in a timely manner because this stuff is actually etching into our steel. So the longer we leave it on here, the more it'll leave a pitted surface and the more hand sanding I'll have to do to get back to nice, clean steel. And then as soon as I get all of this off, I'm gonna take it inside and rinse off the navel jelly right away. There we go. Bluing has been removed. That would have taken probably like 2 hours of hand sanding with 3000 grit to get it off. You'd almost have to go to a coarser grit to get all that bluing off. Boom. Fast. It just happened like instantly. All the bluing is removed. I need to go back through the process of hand sanding the parts with 3000 grit paper to get rid of that little bit of texture that the navel jelly left on there. Then we're gonna buff them all up nice and shiny again, and then we're gonna try to blue them again for the 2nd time and for the 3rd time on the pommel. Wish me luck, guys, because I'm gonna need it. I'm gonna go sand and buff, and then we're gonna go back through the entire bluing process once again. Won't know until I dry it off and take a look. Oh, baby. Oh, it's so good. It's so pretty. Oh, I'm so glad I redid the pommel to get rid of those micro scratches now. Oh man. All the bluing is done and I've sharpened Excelsior's blade. My process to sharpen it was to first use this pretty coarse Norton India stone just to rough it in. And then I moved to a wet stone, but it was just wet enough to where it could create a nice slurry. So I used this 300 grit stone, and then I switched over to this, this other wet stone with 1000 grit and then 6000 grit. After that, I lightly went over a leather strope that has a bunch of buffing compound in it and just polished that edge a little bit more. And it's nice and razor sharp now, ready to go. There's only one more thing we've got to do, and that's to assemble all the pieces, and Excelsior is done. I've got all the parts cleaned up, inspected, everything's good to go. We've got the blade wrapped in some masking tape. It is finally time to assemble Excelsior. And then the handle with the front spacer assembly on it already. Oh man, I have not had this thing together since the bluing and everything's been finished yet. Finish it all up with the pommel nut. Excelsior is finally done. I got all the tape off, I cleaned it up, it's finished, and I cannot believe it. I have spent 4.5 months working on this sword, the longest sword project I've ever done. The previous sword was about 3 months. This one took a little longer because it was fancier, and oh boy, it's finally done. It feels surreal to have this project done. It feels really good in my hand. It's just about the right weight to where you can hold it with one hand and wield it. It'd be a little unwieldy with one hand, or you can get both hands on there because there's enough handle to fit both of your hands for sure. I got the blade nice and thin. We've got a nice taper all the way down the blade. I'm so happy with how the Damascus came out too. This mosaic is just so cool looking. And I was a little worried about it at one point during the process, but seeing it all finished, I can't believe it. The balance point is about 6 inches in front of the guard, which is exactly where I was wanting it. Something Josh pointed out to me about a sword flying at you really fast if you were in a battle, that's really scary and I never thought of it. When that sword's flying at you, it's gonna be like sideways and you're gonna barely even be able to see the blade because the blade is almost invisible when it's sideways. So that is kind of a terrifying picture that I never thought of before. That metal is very close up there. The bluing looks so good, the 24 karat gold, the balance, the weight, everything about this sword. I'm really, really happy with how it came out. I love the fluted ivory handle. Doing the straight flutes was so much extra work, but I think it looks so cool. I love the leaf-shaped blade and the extra curvy fittings I've got going on here, the clamshell file work on the end of the pommel. Excelsior, Excelsior! 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 We've also got our beautiful scabbard. I'm gonna go ahead and put the sword in and see how it all fits and how it looks together now that it's done. Last time I had the sword in the scabbard was way before I even etched the blade or had any of the gold inlay done or anything. Oh, beautiful. Beautiful. What a trip the past 4.5 months have been for me working on Excelsior, and I'm so glad you guys were there to be part of the journey and experience the downs and the highs alongside me. I will see you in the next video, but first, it's time for a nice long coffee break. End of a 4.5 month project. May the forge be with you. Bye-bye.